You're listening to Xsgaming Podcast, a podcast for gamers by gamers, with your hosts Xander, Skullion, and James Gruesome, bringing you something old, something new, and a little bit of nostalgia too. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whichever time you guys are checking us out. This is another new episode of Xsgaming Podcast. We're recording this on the 4th of July, so happy Independence Day to all my American friends and everyone else. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. I'm one of your hosts, Xander Skullion, and joined with me is my wonderful co-host, Mr. James Gruesome. What's up, James?
Greetings and salutations, everyone. Third time is a charm on the 4th of July, and I want to wish a happy belated birthday to our dear friend Rob Luther of the Retro Junkies Super Show. The young man just turned 30 years old, and it's all downhill from here, dude. But we love you. Have a good one. And to everyone else, hope you're having a great holiday if you're off from work or whatever you may be doing and whatever day you may be listening.
Exactly, yeah, and you said third time's a charm because it's actually just the third time we've been trying to record episode 88 here. If you guys can follow me on Twitter and Facebook, I've tried to keep you guys in the loop of what's been going on. We've just had some technical difficulties, and I want to thank everyone for their patience. And let's get into some gaming news. Now, we have some subjects and topics from our listeners from the Xsgaming Podcast group page, but we also have some other stories to talk about. The first one was, I guess it's official. It's still a rumor. I haven't heard anything more about it, but it's been going all over the interwebs. It started out on NeoGAF, so you do have to take it with a grain of salt. And that is the Nintendo NX won't be revealed at Tokyo Game Show. Now, Tokyo Game Show is pretty much like Japan's E3. They show all the newest gadgets and gizmos from, technology and consoles and the systems and all that stuff. And a lot of people were hoping that Nintendo would be showing off the NX at this presentation, but it looks like that's not going to happen. Now, I have some theories about this, but before I get into it, what do you think about this, James?
At the end of the day, Nintendo, they just dance to the beat of their own drum. They're going to do things their way, no matter how people perceive it. I think it'd be a really cool optimum time to present something, show something, because there's still nothing tangible there at all, which is kind of cool. I like the mystery of it. We get so used to, let's see this, now, we want everything right at the moment. I'm just going to kind of enjoy the wait of it all, but I could see them doing it with a direct. They seem to like doing the things on their own terms and just kind of buck the system. So I respect them from that, as odd as it may be sometimes.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm 100% with you, man. I mean, we live in such a day of instant gratification with the internet. We have information that comes out of the wazoo at the palm of our hands, whether it be a smartphone or tablet or laptop, whatever. And it's kind of nice having this little bit of mystery, It's nice having the hype. I mean, you can't deny that Nintendo's getting free advertisement from everyone that's been talking about the NX. They pretty much just mentioned the NX, and everyone else has been kind of boasting what's going on. And we don't really know exactly what the NX is going to be, but from what it looks like, it's going to be something really exciting. I do also think it's going to be a direct. And the reason why is because while it's not being shown at Tokyo Game Show, people do have to understand Tokyo Game Show, it's in Japan. It's all in Japanese. And the time frame is going to be a little weird for some people in America. I mean, I watched Tokyo Game Show at like 5 o'clock in the morning. For some of the people that want to see the live reveal, maybe you don't want to get up that early. That's why I think a direct would be a little easier. It's globally. It's, going to be in English. They don't have a time signature they have to stay with. They can do it as long as they want because it's their show. If they want to do a, 30-minute Nintendo Direct talking about the NX, they can do that. If they want to do a 2-hour, they can do that. I do think, though, time is ticking with the release date set for March 2017. I do think no later than October, they need to go ahead and start letting the consumers know about this because it gives people a chance to decide if they want to get the NX. Because as of now, we don't know anything. I know some people are on the fence about it. Some people are like, regardless, I'm going to get it. So, yeah, time's starting to close in, and I'm hoping, out of all of it, I hope Nintendo's like, all right, we'll go ahead and show you guys just the controller, or at least something, or official name, you know?
Yeah, you kind of see with the holidays, and that's when people start looking at, obvious times sometimes to get a system, and you would like to show them something out to say, like, hey, should I wait? They did that with the Nintendo 64, 20 years ago. They had it out and it didn't come out till the following year, and a lot of people waited on getting the other systems at that time for Nintendo. Wait for it, so it's kind of cool they're going back to that. I do like the mystery, but something out there, just to know a little bit more would be great. And then they kind of have another holiday with them planning on it coming out, with kind of being tax season for a lot of people. Maybe they're hoping to cash in a bit around that time too. But I'm like you, I'm looking forward to it. Anytime a little bit of info drops, is it going to have cartridges? It's handheld and a system. It's, how far does the handheld work? I think the Wii U to me actually would be, as much as I love it, would be a lot cooler if I could just play the Wii Pad like downstairs in my house. Like if it had a little bit more distance.
Yeah.
And where you don't have to use the pad, because I really love the controller, and at times it's like, the pad's comfortable, but sometimes I'd rather use that. But it's just so many questions. I think it's cool, and I guess we're all just going to have to wait and see, because that's all we can do.
Yeah, I mean, and there's going to be always rumors, and I always tell people, I first heard about the story of the Tokyo Game Show. A friend of mine, John, he messaged me on Facebook when he was telling me. And I'm like, dude, it's NeoGAF. I'm like, take it with a grain of salt. I mean, it's all up the rumor mill. And unless I hear an official word from Nintendo, I don't believe it. I'm not going to sit there and jump on it, because I've seen it so many times, especially at Tokyo Game Show. It's pretty much like the E3, and there's going to be a lot of false flags and a lot of like, oh, this game's going to be released, and the company's like, we're not even thinking about this game, So it is what it is. Also, really interesting news, Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 7, the Biohazard demo breaks records. Beginning hour has been downloaded over 2 million times globally. Now, Resident Evil 7 was released the last E3, and it's a PlayStation 4 exclusive. And it's a little different. I have it downloaded myself, but I haven't had a chance to play it yet. But I know our friend Ryan from the Casket Creatures, he really enjoyed it. It's more of a first-person perspective. It has that PT, Silent Hills kind of vibe to it. I will say, though, like Capcom said, that this was just a concept of what they were working on. This isn't going to be anything like the actual game, so it may not be first-person. It may have some third-person elements to it. And I know some people were kind of upset that Resident Evil 7 didn't follow any of the characters that we knew and loved, like Chris Redfield or Leon or Jill or anything like that.
Or Barry.
Or Barry. But my thing is, I'm kind of okay with that, because if you've played Resident Evil 6, the story to Resident Evil has gotten so crazy and so convoluted that if they really are trying to start this series on a clean slate, this would be the best way to do it. Just go ahead and just start it brand new, So, I don't know. I definitely want to play it, though.
Yeah, I don't mind. Like I said, if it's a little bit of a different direction, like I said, who knows exactly what they're going for. I saw some clips of it, and it looked pretty interesting, and I hear the guys that work on Revelations, they're still wanting to keep that series going, too, and to me, that was a bit more of a throwback to the older ones. So, I could see them having a couple different series running, so you really kind of have a choice. You can kind of have your standard, or you can kind of maybe go with a little bit new. Obviously, people are interested in it, with that many people checking it out.
Yeah, and also, of course, we still have the Resident Evil 2 remake that's being... They didn't really talk too much about it, but they said it's still on its way. So they're still making a Resident Evil 2 remake. So, I think that's really popular, because the Resident Evil Origins collection that was on the PS4 and PS3, they came out recently. A lot of people's been really enjoying it. So I could see them remaking Resident Evil 2, maybe remaking Resident Evil 3. God knows we have so many ports of Resident Evil 4. They could skip that if they want to. I'll be fine with that. It's probably already on the PS4. It's on, Resident Evil 4 is on everything.
I mean, I've got like 2 versions of it myself, and I've still never even really played it all that much. 2 is just seems a lot of people seem to be really excited with how well the original remake of it turned out. I'm kind of curious about the 0. I've never really played it. I have the GameCube version, and I need to. I know the new one you can use tank controls, or the newer ones, and I think the GameCube might be tank controls only, which means I'm never gonna play that then. So, I'd like to play the Origins one day because I would like to check out 0. It seems like it could be kind of cool, but dealing with the 2 people and tank controls is honestly just too much for me and would kill any fun I would have out of that. But 2 is just, it's so classic, along with 1 and a giant alligator. I can't wait to see what that looks like. It's total ground up remake. I'm pretty sure it's going to be amazing because it's been in the works for a little bit, and there was even rumors that 7 was getting held up for them working on this. But then when you look at it, we'll probably keep getting some good remakes like that. Like maybe they'll go to 3. We'll have the newer ones, Revelations. It's all cool, and you get a little bit of different dose of Resident Evil, no matter which way you like to play it.
Exactly. More options equals more fun, in my opinion. I think there's nothing wrong with more ways of playing your favorite series. Now, we do have some topics from our listeners on the Xsgaming Podcast group page on Facebook. If you guys haven't joined, be sure to check out facebook.com/group/Xsgaming Podcast is all one word. And you guys can join and, share. If you have content, if you have a YouTube channel or a podcast, you can share it on that. It's a group page. It's a community page. It's not just all about me and James showing off his, what is that, 10-pound of cereal marshmallows?
It was just 1 pound. Oh. 1 pound of cereal marshmallows.
10 pounds would just be insane.
Yeah, 1 pound goes a long way. I'm not sick of them yet. I'm taking, I'm not overdoing it. I'm just eating a little bit here and there. I like to have a handful. Can put as many as I want on my cereal. And here's something really big for me. I ate some on some Trix. And Trix, wait, here's the real thing. Trix is now in the little balls again. It's not the stupid pieces of fruit.
Oh, man.
Like, that's just, when I saw that, I was like, wow, because that's how it was when I was little. And at some point, they changed the pieces of fruit. And I got to say, I think the little balls are better. Maybe I'm just nostalgic about the balls. I don't know. I'm picking balls over fruit.
Oh, man. Well, when I think of Trix in the ball form, it makes me think of Addams Family.
Yeah.
The Addams Family movie? I can't remember what scene, but like some scene where someone was eating cereal and I think a golf ball fell in the kid's cereal bowl or something. That was Trix. But yeah, and speaking of nostalgia, before we get into these topics from the listeners, I did want to mention they're bringing back Crystal Pepsi. Did you hear about this?
I think I saw you post something about that.
Yeah, I'm not even excited about it. I mean, I remember Crystal Pepsi. I was a lot younger. I was like in first grade when it came out. I remember, the only reason I remember it's because my mom drank it a lot because she had a really bad ulcer and she couldn't drink dark liquids and caffeine. And Crystal Pepsi was caffeine free and it was clear. And she got tired of drinking Sprite, so she drank this new Pepsi. And the only reason why I'm not excited about it is because if you guys been following with this, high C Echo Cooler, it's still not in stores. I saw on the Facebook, apparently Ghostbusters made a post on their Facebook page with the giant high C juice box, in the city, kind of like the giant fluff marshmallow man. And they're like, it's coming soon to stores. Stay patient. Because the only way you can get it right now, there are some stores that do carry it, but the only way to truly get it is to get it off Amazon Prime, and people's just buying cases and flipping them online. So I think the same thing is going to happen with Crystal Pepsi because it says it's going to be limited to store supplies in the States. So I'm like, great.
That's one of those things though. A lot of people really wanted Ecto Cooler. I don't know how many people want Crystal Pepsi. I'm not sure if I even drank one. And I tell you what's brutal. I lived through New Coke. Like that, that was like a earlier, mid-'80s kind of thing where they took away Coke. It became New Coke. People hated it. And that's how Coca-Cola Classic came to be because they made this New Coke that everybody hated. I think they were trying to go a little bit more towards Pepsi, a little bit less sweet, but that's why I like the difference in them. You know, they're both good, but I like that sharpness of a Coke sometimes. I just lost it. So they kept the new Coke for a bit, did the Coca-Cola Classic, and then they finally just dropped it all together. So Crystal Pepsi, I don't. Seems like I just heard mainly like bad things about that. Like I don't.
Yeah.
Did you remember drinking it at all?
I remember drinking it, but I can't remember how it tasted. I just remember I had it, you know, and I don't know. I talked to my boss Friday last. No, it wasn't Friday. It was like last Thursday about it, and he was telling me the horror stories about it. He was like, "Dude, it was horrible. You know, if it got hot, because it didn't have the caramel corn syrup in it, they replaced it with something else. So when it got real hot, it got real thick." And he said it smelled like a fart. I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll see though. But
it's cool. I mean, I like the idea of old things like that coming back up. Maybe it'll just be for a little bit, and you know, hopefully people probably really won't want that, and then people will buy it all up, and they'll be stuck with Crystal Pepsi. For jerks.
It'll be just like the people that are selling Crystal Pepsi now on eBay, selling it for 20-year-old cans. That the only reason why people buy it is so they can drink it on a YouTube channel and barf their brains out. Ugh. You know, I don't understand that. But yeah, we have some topics from the listeners. Let's see. We got John, aka Gaming Through Decades, off of YouTube. He asked, is the Scorpio Microsoft swan song? Now, for some of you guys who are unfamiliar, I'm not completely familiar. I should have did some more research about this, but you guys know I don't have an Xbox One, so I haven't really been doing a whole lot of Xbox One studying. But apparently there's an Xbox One Model S that's coming out. That's going to be the slimmer version. And then they're also making the Xbox One Scorpio, which is going to be rivaling the PS4's Neo. And he's asking if this is going to be their swan song, because one of the things that the Xbox is going to be having is crossplay with the PC gamers. So with PC gaming, if you have a PC and it's Windows 10 compatible, you can play Xbox One games on your PC. You don't have to have an Xbox One. Matter of fact, my friend Amanda, she sold her Xbox One, and she heard about this, and she's like, you know what? Instead of buying a brand new Xbox One or buying one used again, I'm going to just build myself a gaming rig. PC. So what do you think about this, James? I think it could possibly be their swan song if they want it to be.
I mean, Microsoft are the guys that got into gaming because they could. I think they did pretty good, with the original Xbox. I still enjoy that system. I think they did extremely well with the 360, to the point where I knew, more people that had a 360 than a PlayStation. It almost became like almost in a sense, like the casual gamers console, just because more of those people seem to have one than a PlayStation. I could see them walking away just because they got into it, later on. I think Nintendo is in it for the long haul. Sony's sticking around. I mean, you hear things too about possible online play with Sony systems, which, it's still a little bit rumors, but both sides seem to be open to it. And that's insane. That's something I never dreamed would happen. I mean, that's like seeing Sonic on Nintendo systems now, with them reaching out and doing things like that, and whether it's crossing on a PC or just playing online with a whole nother system, which they, say is possible to do. It's not that difficult. Who knows? They could reach out. They're ones that if they stop making systems, they could still do games if they wanted to. They could reach out and obviously still have platforms to put them on. With these upgradable systems coming out, I like the idea that it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. If we stop having to pay, a large amount for a system and you just pay a little bit less, everything's really changing. And some people are going to change with the times, and other people are, they might just go ahead and bow out instead of keeping on going because maybe they don't think it's a viable thing. It's all kind of madness.
Yeah, Sean Jenkins, he kind of did a good little segue for us on this when he asked, the slightly updating consoles like the upcoming PS4 Neo and the Xbox One Scorpio, thoughts on what this could mean for the future console generations. Now, this is kind of like what we were just talking about, how some people are going to adapt to this. Some people are not going to adapt to it, and they're just going to be like, I'm just going to go straight for PC gaming. Maybe I know Ian from the CU podcast. He said that he's getting, a PC rig and the Nintendo NX, and that's all he's going to have. And I know a lot of people. My friend John's even talked about doing that. My thing is, I don't think that consoles are always going to be updating every 2 years. I think this is a great example that this generation started out dated. When the Xbox One came out and the PS4 came out, they were already dated from the get-go because, they didn't have the 4K. It was really hard for them to pull 1080p and 60 frames. And by the time it came out, that was a very normal thing. So I think it's just them trying to play catch up with these updated consoles. Now, I will say from what I've heard, the PS4 Neo and the Xbox One Scorpio are not going to be having games running through 4K. It's going to have 4K playback. And what that means is, you can play 4K Blu-rays. When you're streaming Netflix, you can do it in 4K. The games themselves are not going to change. The consoles will have a faster processor, but other than that, maybe some better capability with the VR. I don't think that it's going to be that much of a difference other than just slightly better, a little bit of cosmetic difference. I don't think it's going to be like the new 3DS. If you guys are familiar with the new 3DS, it's got a faster CPU on it. It's got better 3D. If you have a new 3DS, you can also get Super Nintendo games on the eShop. You can't do that with the normal 3DS. And of course, you can play games like Xenoblade Chronicles, the Wii port, onto the 3DS. So I don't think it's going to be like that. I don't think we'll, go into a store and see PS4 Neo boxes next to a PS4 normal core box or anything like that. To me, that would just be like Sega all over again,
Yeah, I mean, they make it seem like these systems are not something you have to get. Like, it's going to be sold right along with, the PS4, especially with the Sony systems. They said it's going to be sold right along the PS4 throughout the life of the system. Like, they're both always going to be there, which I don't really believe, I hope they don't do the way where a game, runs, like it works on both, but it's just extremely better on this one. You can't help but think there might be some differences, but I hope it's not enough to affect gameplay, because you're going to leave a lot of people. The system has not been out all that long, and everybody knows when you're an early adopter, there's that chance of the Slim, but these systems don't really seem like the Slim. This is something a little bit different, and some people are going to feel kind of mad about this, and at least it's both systems doing it, so you can't be like, oh, screw you, Sony, I'll go to Microsoft, and like, no, they're both doing this. I'm just kind of, and coming from the outside and not having either at the moment, I get to pick through the options. That's good for some people like me, and I can see which one's better. One could be way less. I don't have a 4K TV, not planning on getting one, still paying for my regular one, so I'm just kind of curious to see how it all goes through, and I just, I feel bad for people that feel like they might have got, like, stiffed, and hopefully it's not like that. Like I said, hopefully the, games still run the same, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Exactly. Now, I got a couple more questions. Let me just scroll through here. I had to screenshot this. Let's see. So we got that. Also, Justin, a.k.a. Down Phoenix, not BioPhoenix, that's Chris. But Justin asked, Reggie gives a good point that the weakest console traditionally sold the best. The NES outsold the Sega Master System in 7800. And, and he talked about this with Reggie's response from E3 when they asked about the NX. When they asked Reggie about the NX and asked about specs, he was just kind of like, Nintendo, we really don't care about specs as much as the gameplay, about as much as the games and the entertainment. We're an entertainment company. We're, the stuff will follow afterwards. And he kind of made a good point, because while everyone talks about how Nintendo needs to come out with a console that's right up there with the PS4 and the Xbox One, or even powerful, because it's, a predecessor. It's pretty much going to be a predecessor to Wii U, no matter how much Nintendo says it's not going to be. My thing is, Nintendo's always been underpowered. Justin made a good example. The NES was very underpowered compared to the Sega Master System, compared to the 7800, compared to the TurboGrafx 16. Because TurboGrafx 16 came out before the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo. So when the TurboGrafx came out, it was actually better than the NES. But the problem was Hudson Soft had no idea about marketing. They tried to market the TurboGrafx like they did the PC Engine in Japan by having advertisements in large cities instead of all over the country. So many people didn't know about the TurboGrafx. Sega Master System did great over in Europe. But in America, I don't know about you, man, but I didn't know about the Sega Master System until I was like 14 years old. I thought the Genesis was the first Sega console back then.
I had a couple of friends when I was around we'll still close around like 11, 12 years old, and they had a Master System, which is cool because I was like, I don't really know what this is. What are these games on these weird cards? Because they had a couple of little Hue card games. And, I thought it was fun. It was a fun system, but everybody that had one always only had a few games for it, And then the TurboGrafx, friend of mine down the street had one, and that was awesome too. Once again, not that many games, and we also got hit over here with the fact that we didn't get near as many games as Japan did on the TurboGrafx. It's insane. Like, you kind of wonder if some of these systems weren't competing against Nintendo's, brutal exclusivity.
Their monopoly they had back then with third party.
If they hadn't had that, you can only wonder just maybe what some of these other companies could have done.
Yeah, because you had companies like Konami, Capcom, the head honchos, Square. You had all of them, working with Nintendo, and they pretty much only had to work with the Nintendo. And that's one of the reasons why, Konami made Ultra, because they were only allowed to make a certain number of games a year. So they're like, oh, we'll make a sister company. We'll make Ultra, and Ultra can make some more Konami games. So,
I think it was only about 5 a year they could do, and that just would have been a shame because it had to do with that quality. I guess Nintendo figured if you put out more than 5 games a year, they're gonna suffer, which wasn't true because between Konami and Ultra, some of the most amazing games, back then. It's just, those are the companies, like we always say, Capcom, Konami, or Ultra, which you kind of learned was the same thing when you were younger.
Yeah.
But you could buy mostly any one of their games, and you knew you were going to get something good.
Exactly. Now, what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to take a short break, and we're going to get into some N64 talk, because the N64, 2 weeks ago now, turned 20 years old, and we have some memories we wanted to share with you guys, and of course some memories from you guys, the listeners, that we're going to share with as well. So sit back, relax, guys, listen to some F-Zero 64, and we'll be right back. And we are back, guys. That was some F-Zero 64. Fantastic racer. Actually, N64 has a lot of racers that we can talk about. But yeah, we're going to be talking about some N64 memories and some celebrations of the N64 as it turns 20 years old 2 weeks ago. And James, I have to ask you once again, because I love hearing it, your N64 story. How did you get into the N64?
Yeah, well, as we said, with the 20th year, it launched on the 23rd of June in 1996. And we didn't get it over here a few months later, till September 29th. And then a friend of mine had gotten one. I think he got one pretty much around launch. And we'd play it often. Mostly ended up being the wrestling games. And this was the first system Nintendo released as far as home system. It didn't actually come with a game. I believe at the time, initially, it was just one controller. And it was $199.99. Good PowerPoint pricing. And I think when I got mine, I couldn't remember because they had a couple price drops along the way. But I was so big into the wrestling games, I'd gone to the store and I'd bought, I think it was Nitro for the PlayStation.
Ugh.
And then, of course, yes, exactly at the same time, I was used to, the AKI games, the No Mercy, Revenge. So I bought the Nitro, and I'd got it from Babbage's, I believe, or Funko. Took it home, horrible, took it right back. You could take games back then, whether you opened them just because you didn't like it. And the guy asked, why I didn't like it. And I told him, everything was horrible. Graphics, moves, it was just bad. And I was like, give me that. And I got WCW and NWA Revenge. Yet, I didn't have a Nintendo 64. So I'd called my dad and asked him if I could borrow the money until payday to get it. And like I said, they could have, I don't think they were still $200 when I got mine. Maybe between $150 and $180. And mine came with the Atomic Purple controller. So they did start coming with two controllers again after. Wait, did that come with was that the extra bonus controller? I'm not even completely sure.
Yeah, I mean, they had different colors at launch because I remember listening to Happy Console Gamer and Robman. He had pre-ordered his N64, and he didn't like the fact that N64, the standard controller was gray. He wanted a black one, so he actually bought the black one before the N64 came out.
Yeah, and like I said, I know mine had the purple. I was just trying to think if it came with two controllers. Which I think it did. I think the Atomic Purple was a bonus. It came with the gray and the other. So, I got the money from my dad, got the system, and then it was right near my birthday. And when I was going to pay him back, he told me not to worry about it. So, my dad managed to get me my Nintendo, my Super Nintendo, and my 64. And I was still probably around, 19 or 20 then at the time, so it's like I still got it, and I don't have that one exactly, but I have the one that he ended up buying for himself later on because Dad loves Mario Kart.
Oh yeah, and my story was like I remember when the N64 launched in '95. I remember the first place I played it was at a Walmart. And they had the kiosks. I saw it, and I was like, oh, man, this is the new Nintendo console. They had Mario 64, and I just was blown away by that game. It was just something that we had never seen before, this fully 3D Mario game. And the weird thing is, I thought the coolest thing about that whole game at that time was the fact you could do backflips, and you could punch Goombas. I was like, man, that is so freaking awesome. And, I played that for a while, and I went in back like 2 weeks later, and they had 007 GoldenEye. And, I mean, what's there to say about GoldenEye? GoldenEye, while it wasn't the first, consoleized first-person shooter, it helped put first-person shooters on the map with console gamers, I think you can agree that N64 is a multiplayer machine. It's got the 4 controller ports, and I mean, so many people played, GoldenEye using that 4-player split screen. And I remember later on, I got N64. I got one really late. I got one when I first started working at Babbage's back in like 2005. Oh, oops, microphone got a little muted for a second there. But no, I got it a little late into the game. I was working at Babbage's. It was around 2005, 2006, and they were just starting to pull N64 games off the market. They were no longer be taking trades for PlayStation 1 or N64 games. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get an N64. I started getting into collecting a lot more back then. And I got one. I got the gray one, but the reset button was stuck. So it wouldn't work. So when I took it home, I couldn't get it to work. So I took it back. The only other ones they had left was a pink one and a jungle green one. And I got the jungle green one. That's the same one I have today. That was the jungle green one actually debuted with Donkey Kong 64. So it came with the jungle green N64 and the yellow controller that looked like a banana. You remember that?
The banana controller, yeah. Those are quite a bit of a collector item now. They're pretty expensive. That was one thing with the 64. They definitely branched out with the colors, and green, black, the gray, the orange. In Japan, they had a lot of really cool ones because those were like red, like a clear red on the top, white on the bottom. Kind of look like a Pokeball a little bit, the blue and white. So, they never strayed away. I like the different amounts. And, with the controller, they actually had a couple. Like you mentioned, the banana one. There was one from Nintendo Power. Very cool looking. Black controller. It's black and silver. I think it's one of the only ones to actually have black colored buttons. It didn't. I think Start is the only red one. The B, the A, the C's, they're all black. Really cool. I think it's an anniversary one upon looking that up. And, thinking with the controller, that was another very unique thing with the 64. Definitely a step off from the norm. Going from Nintendo to Super Nintendo is just like, oh, okay, cool, I get this. Initial look with the 64 controller, that's a little bit odd, Well, in a sense, you still have some of the same buttons, with your B, your A, you got your L, your R. And then, you have a Z now with the trigger. It looks like 3 handles. But in a sense, that gave it a little bit of a variation because different games can hold it a different way. I actually find it quite comfortable. And while it's not one of my favorite controllers, I think all in all, it's pretty good. Whether you hold it straight across like a traditional controller, or maybe you're playing a first-person game with the, one in the middle and one on the side. And some games too, you could even switch up the options. So I think you could just use the D-pad on some. You had a lot of different ways. But the controller itself, very unique. First analog controller, and the first controller to have a rumble.
Oh, man, I remember that Rumble Pack. I remember, playing Star Fox 64, and, again, that was at a kiosk because I didn't have a 64 then. I had a PlayStation, but even back then, it was before I had the PlayStation because I remember I was playing Star Fox 64, and I felt that rumble, and I was like, whoa. And it's such a normal thing today, like, you're so used to your controllers, they just rumble. That's just what they do. But back then, that was just something completely different, and I have a love and hate relationship with the N64's controller. Some games I really love using that controller for. Some of them I don't. The great thing is there's a lot of a ton of third-party N64 controllers. Some of them not that great. Some of them, like you would call, James, the Bobo controller with the really stubby sides and the really thick middle. I have a gold one that's like that. But they've had like some Mad Cat controllers that were really interesting, and also of course the Hori Mini Pad, which looks like an essential GameCube controller.
Hori makes, they do cost a little bit more, but I believe it's nothing but quality from them. I mean, every control pad they've made has looked really cool, and these are definitely have that smaller look. And there's another one I think they made that looks a bit more like a PlayStation controller.
Yeah.
It's kind of got a little bit of the handle, the button layout. It looks more like just a traditional controller in a sense as compared to the regular. But with the Bobos, everybody had one at some point because, like you said, this is a system that was built. It's have to rank at the top of the list, I think, as far as systems really built for multiplayer madness. The 4 slots in there. And let's see, I lost the train of thought there on that one.
But a lot of people would have to get those Bobo controllers.
The Bobo controllers, yeah.
They'd have to get them just so they'd have their friends over and stuff
They
like
were
that.
cheap.
They were very cheap. They were a lot cheaper than N64 controllers. And, speaking of upgradable consoles, the N64 had a slight upgrade with the expansion pack as well. It only worked with, 3 games? Majora's Mask, Donkey Kong 64, and Perfect Dark?
Yeah, those are the only ones that it was required. And I want to say Perfect Dark, some versions of it came with the expansion pack, which I think, now you might have paid a little bit more for it, of course, but I think that's kind of cool. So it kind of lets you know. Kind of like how the Wii Motion Plus, a couple of the games that you were required to use for it, you could buy it with it. So they weren't trying to hide the fact that you needed that. And it did make some other games look a little better. Also with the Game Shark, for compatibility with that, a lot of times you need to use it. But very simple little thing, just kind of popped out, came with a tool to get the old one out. And just, added some more RAM to it. Other systems have done that before, like the Saturn.
Yeah.
They had the pack in the back, but sometimes too, if anybody ever has any trouble with your 64, like the screen's blacking out, take out your little either jumper pack or RAM pack and give it a clean and just check on it and make sure, it's free of debris and such, because that can actually cause a lot of problems with 64.
Oh, wow.
Easy to fix with just a cleaning, but, that's one of the first things. If your power cable's good and everything like that, and games are clean, check out that, because it can really just kind of throw them off.
And here's a little interesting promotion thing I just pulled up. To boost sales during the low post-Christmas season, Nintendo and General Mills worked together on a promotional campaign that appeared in early 1999. A television advertising campaign that cost $5 million. The advertisement was in New York and began on January 25th and encouraged children to buy fruit by the foot snacks for tips to help them through the N64 games. 90 different tips were available on 3 variations of 30 tips each. And it says Nintendo advertises a fruitastic series of peripherals with a 10 million print and television campaign from February 28th to April 30th, 2000. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that kind of stuff.
I don't think I had the fruit by the foot. Was that kind of like bubble tape?
It's like a fruit roll up, but a lot longer. It came in like a roll, and you just roll it out, and the wax paper that you'd roll it out on usually had like a little design, and in this case would have Nintendo tips and tricks.
Oh, that's kind of cool. I could see why I probably didn't eat that then, because I hated fruit roll-ups,
Oh, dude, I love them.
It's like eating skin. I don't know.
I guess you weren't a big fan of fruit leather then. That's even worse.
That just sounds like what it would be. I was cool with the bubble tape.
But yeah, they had a lot of advertising for the N64. I mean, I remember going into Blockbuster and they had the Pokemon Snap, and you would actually go in there and, you could print out your pictures of your Pokemon that you took, and you could actually use your cartridge. Like if you bought the game, or maybe you rented it and you don't want to take it back yet, you put the cartridge in the kiosk and it would read data and print off the pictures. And I know one of the people I know, Casey from Facebook, he was on Metal Jesus Rocks. He's got a full Wii collection, and he's actually got a lot of kiosks, and that's one of the kiosks he has is the Pokemon Snap, which I will go on record and say Pokemon Snap's probably one of my favorite N64 games. I absolutely love that game, and I really wish Nintendo would just, release it on the Wii U using the gamepad as a camera, or the Nintendo 3DS, but I think we're going to be getting this with the Pokemon Go. It's going to be kind of like a Pokemon Snap kind of thing. But
now, can that game be played like without use of a camera, or?
Well, it was like the game itself was, almost like a on-rail shooter, because you use the crosshairs to take pictures of the Pokemon, but instead of shooting them, you were taking their picture.
Yeah.
And you'd have little things like apples that you would throw at their heads to make them do a certain pose or do a certain move. You take that picture and you get more points and stuff like that. It was a really cool game.
That's cool. That's just because I have that one. That's one of the few Pokemon games I have. That I have that one on the 64, and I've yet to play it. And I think
Oh,
I
dude, you
just
do.
got Pokemon Stadium, too.
I tell you what. After the podcast, get yourself some beers, sit on your chair, and play some Pokemon Snap. You'll
I
have
will.
so much fun. You'll have a
I'll try
blast,
that
dude. I'm
out.
telling you, it's a lot of fun. It's really relaxing too. I really like the soundtrack. But yeah, let's talk about some of the games before we get into the listeners' memories. Before we get into the kind of stuff they wanted to talk about. But what were some games that really stuck out for you with the N64?
One thing I want to say first is the launch. This is kind of crazy. They launched in Japan with 3 games, and they launched over here with 2. Mario 64 and Pilot Wing 64.
Oh yeah.
That was it. Now, you could say a lot of times other launches can have more games, a little bit more choices, but sometimes there's a lot of crap in there too. So at least they kind of came out with 2 solid ones. Now, I like to get in my 64 a little bit later on because I had a little bit more choice. And, the wrestling games. That was the main reason I got a 64. Still the best. AKI made 4 of them. We've talked about them so many times. And there's 2 more in Japan, like I said, that I've been playing recently. And that's the great thing with the 64 Game Shark. That can literally open a whole new world as far as Japan and playing games from over there, a lot which are pretty playable. I imagine some, not so much, but at least it's an easy, cheap way to try that out. But wrestling games stood out the top. So much fun as far as the multiplayer. James Bond game, that one, GoldenEye. They made a couple more, but that was the one that really just kind of set that standard, like you said, for the first-person games. RPGs, now a lot of people criticize the 64 for saying they were rather lacking on that. Quest 64, which I've played, because I hear everybody say how horrible it is, and I said, let me try this out. And while it's not quite as bad as I thought it would be, it's still a little bit frustrating and confusing. And it had a sequel. And then fighting games. That's another one some people think the 64 could lack on. And while it didn't have Street Fighter or King of Fighters, it did have its fair share of its own games as far as Killer Instinct.
Yep.
That had been a big arcade title, on the Super NES, on the 64. Silicon Graphics did a lot of work in on that. Just like huge arcade hit. Then we had a couple other ones that fell under the radar. One of my favorites is Fighter's Destiny. I've mentioned this one before, 1 and 2. It kind of has the look a little bit more like a 3D fighter, but still kind of plays a little bit in 2D. It has a really cool point system as far as throws, hits, different things you do, ring outs. They give you a different set amount of points. And while sometimes it breaks up the action, I kind of like it because it gives it that karate tournament feel. It does have a creative fighter mode on there. You have bosses you can unlock. I think it's really great. I mean, it's one of my favorite games on the 64 and just a fighting game. And I've posted up pictures of it before, and I was really surprised and thought it was cool to see how many other people, thought pretty highly of that game. I kind of expected people to be like, oh, that's crap, but people were like, oh, no, that's a really cool game. Konami had one called Deadly Arts, and, it's okay. Flying Dragon, one of my favorite series on the Nintendo, they had a fighting game on there as well. And another one, too, was Mace the Darkness. Had lots of demons on there, Asmodeus, and you fought with weapons. It had some background environments like lava and giant Sith swinging that could hit you. And I want to say it had some fatalities on there. And it was another one that was, if I remember right, it was kind of 3D-ish in a sense, but it still played pretty much like a 2D fighter. And another one that, it's just cheap. It's really cool. And that's the thing with the 64, man. It's just so many, and like racing games, I bet there's a lot. You like the racing games a lot, don't you?
Yeah. I like like Cruising USA. Trying to think of some more, like, of course, Diddy Kong Racing is really good. There's a Disney racing game that's on the N64. I can't remember the rest of. I can't remember.
Mickey Speedway.
It's
Mickey
actually
Speedway
really
USA.
good. It's good. It's not too bad. I mean, if you can get past the annoying voices, it's not too bad.
Yeah, the Mickey. I want to say they had a Mickey's Tetris on there as well. It did a couple team ups with those good ones. The Beetle Adventure Racing is one of my favorites, and that's one I'd heard my brother tell me about. He found it about through a GameSack video. And this is a game, I mean, it's got to be my favorite racer on there. It's Volkswagen themed, so that's the only cars you can really pick from. But, just as far as fun and like secret paths, there's secret paths that lead to secret paths to secret paths. Like, you can't even use them all in one race. You have to do, you can do 3 laps and you still won't find all the shortcuts and secrets. It's a fun one that I think anybody could play and get some enjoyment out of. Got some really cool dinosaurs on one level. It's like Jurassic Park themed.
That's cool.
Definitely go one in. We had a lot of the classic Nintendo series. Like I said, we had the Disney Tetris. There was Tetris.
I did want to mention one thing though before we get into that. When we were talking about fighting games, there were a couple of Mortal Kombat games on the N64. They had Trilogy, the Sub-Zero Mythologies, and of course Mortal Kombat 4. But one of my favorite fighting games actually on the N64, and it's on the PlayStation as well, but I don't know why I like the N64 version a lot, but it's BioFreaks.
Yeah, I have that one. I tried to get all the fighting games on the 64, and BioFreaks was kind of cool. You can fly around. That's the one you can chop off each other's limbs.
Yeah. It was so bloody and awesome. Like, yeah, and they would still fight. You like chop their arms off and they can only kick at that point, and it was interesting. And they had some other fighting game that was like War of the Gods or something like that. I never played it, but I've always seen it.
War Gods, I think.
War Gods, yeah, that's what it was. But yeah, they had a lot of course they had a lot of, like you said, Nintendo. I mean, this is the debut of like Smash Brothers. Smash Brothers debuted on the N64. You also had Pokemon Stadium. That's where it debuted at. And, of course, the Zelda games. Today, they're acclaimed as some of the best Zelda games ever. Ocarina of Time. That's some people's favorite Zelda of all time. Some people... There's like a huge cult following of people that love Majora's Mask. I don't know why, because I can't stand Majora's Mask.
That's one, it seems to be a bit more polarizing. I do hear more people that at the end of the day, they're like, yeah, I didn't really care for that one. I recently started Ocarina of Time. I missed out on a lot. And now I'm kind of just casually trying to collect, every 64 game. Just taking my time. But Ocarina was one I finally got to because I spent so much time playing wrestling. I had a few more games. I had Mace. I had Killer Instinct. I had a few of those. But I spent so much time playing wrestling. I missed out on a lot. And Zelda, the Ocarina of Time, I think, really great one. I could see why a lot of people really love that one. And another one, now not a whole lot of people are super crazy about this, but Castlevania 64.
Oh, yeah.
That was the first debut of a 3D Castlevania game, and you go into it and you're excited, and you finally play it, and it's just, man, like
skeletons on motorcycles.
Yeah, I'm not against skeletons on motorcycles.
That was the coolest part of the game, and the soundtrack, of course. Soundtrack was awesome.
It just makes you. It's like, man, I wish I was playing Super Castlevania. I think over time I got into where I don't quite hate it as much, and actually my brother, he had sent me about 13 64 games that I didn't have, and Castlevania is sitting there in that box. I think after I play some Pokemon Snap, I'm gonna try that. They did follow it up with the Legacy of Darkness to try to right a couple of wrongs in that, but essentially it's still just is a bit of a mess. You know?
Yeah. It's not terrible, but I mean, like, it's no Symphony of the Night.
Not much is.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. Now, we did get some memories from our listeners, and again, this is going to be just a little plug just because I know I have some listeners that listen to the show that aren't a part of the page, but be sure to check out Xsgaming Podcast on Facebook. It's facebook.com/group/Xsgaming Podcast. And we had I asked, our listeners, what's some memories that you have with the N64? And I got a couple of them. Chris, also known as BioPhoenix, says it can drink in Canada. Apparently, you only have to be 20 in Canada. That's awesome. The drink. He says, I always remember going. I cannot read. Anyways, I can remember getting the ice blue N64 for Christmas in 2000, since I really wanted one. And my let's see, but I had an amazing time with Mario 64 and the Big Castle and Gauntlet Legends. Gauntlet Legends was a great multiplayer game.
That's one that it's kind of easy to forget about, but
yeah,
man, I loved all those gauntlets in that series, all the way up to I believe like the Seven Sorrows that was on Xbox. Really had a lot of fun with all those. They really had that kind of old school arcade beat 'em up feel, but it had a little bit more longevity as far as the game, how you could like level up, but you could jump in and out, pick up and play with anybody.
And also, Jason says, seeing Mario 64 for the first time, my best friend got it the day it came out, and I had a Saturn. I went out and bought Nights in the Dreams thinking it would be as good as Mario. Oh, how I was disappointed.
Little Knight just couldn't hold up, I guess.
And then Ryan King, he says, the OG black one. He had the OG black N64. He played it at his grandmother's house when he was a youngin'. Buddy of mine and I got piss-ass drunk one night and played Elmo's Letter Adventure until 2 a.m.
Sounds like something I would play, not drunk.
Games that are still worth checking out. Every Rareware game, which is true, Banjo-Kazooie, Perfect Dark, the list goes on, Conker's Bad Fur Day.
Such a foul game to be on a Nintendo system.
Oh, yeah. Of course, and No Mercy, Kirby 64, Wayne's Gretzky, 3D Hockey, all three of them, Dr. Mario 64, I could keep going.
See, he's sold me. Actually, I have a hockey game I played. I think it was just maybe an NHL, like, I don't know if it was like Icebreakers or on ice. No, it sounds like ice skating. I don't know. I tried it out. It was kind of fun, but now that he specifically mentioned these Wayne Gretzky's, three of them, like, I definitely want to try those out because I do enjoy a hockey game once in a while.
The only hockey game I played that I really enjoyed, and I haven't played a whole lot of hockey games, of course, is Blades of Steel on the NES, and I'd spend more time punching people than actually playing it.
Oh yeah, we used to play that just to fight. Ice hockey's pretty decent too, and I hear a lot of people rave about NHL Live ~95.
Yeah,
that's another one. It just sounds like a legendary hockey game. But these Wayne Gretzky ones, I'm really curious to check out. He had a lot of sports, a lot of racing, and a lot of gems too.
And definitely. And before we close the N64 talk and go into games we've been playing recently, James, if you can mention one game, say you're in a video game store and someone's like, "Hey, I'm about to buy this N64. What game would go great with this?" What would you recommend?
I'm just gonna have to probably go with the standard of one game. I'd have to say Mario. And that's without me even really playing that game. And I've said that before. I've got it sitting there. I keep meaning to pop it in. But it's one I know is great. And really, I came along in an age when Nintendo systems came with a Mario game.
Yeah.
And it came with it. And that was usually one of the best games you could get. So I would have no other reason to think that the Mario would be one of the best games that they could get, and something that possibly maybe anybody could enjoy, going into a system like that.
Well, I would have to say if you were like, "Hey, get Mario 64," if I was there, I would throw Banjo-Kazooie at them at the same time. I'd be like, "And after you play that, play this," because Banjo-Kazooie was also really good too. I felt like I love Mario 64. It's not my favorite Mario. but I really like Banjo-Kazooie because I feel like Banjo-Kazooie took everything that made Mario 64 awesome, and they fixed a lot of things, and they made it even better. They're both great games, by all means, but Banjo-Kazooie was a lot of fun. The one thing I will say that both these games have in common is they have a lot of replay value. They have a lot of playability to it with the whole collecting aspect, which was something that, we weren't really accustomed to with Mario games per se. I mean, we were used to playing from stage to stage to stage. You're collecting the stars to unlock other worlds and stuff like that. If you've never played it and you're playing it now, you're in for a really fun adventure, and I'm actually kind of jealous. And I really wish I could relive that adventure again for the first time for anyone who hasn't played N64. That's what I have to say about that. But
I'm gonna have to check that one out too.
Yeah. Oh man, Banjo-Kazooie's great, and of course the makers of Banjo-Kazooie, the former members of WarWare, just did their Kickstarter, and it's been funded. It should be coming out sometime next year. That's Yooka-Laylee, which is like the spiritual successor of Banjo-Kazooie. That's going to be coming out. So, I'm telling you. I mean, of course, Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo 2D, the sequel. The sequel's a little bit more expensive, but I think the first one is still, I believe, around $20. I mean, N64 is starting to go up in value. That's the only thing that kind of sucks about it. It's starting to go up a little bit, especially the top tier ones. Now, your sports titles and racers and stuff like that, they have a dime a dozen of. They're still very affordable, but like when you get into like Zelda and stuff like that, I mean, Ocarina of Time now, I'm seeing it go for like $40 loose.
Some get up around 40. Usually not too many are above like the $50 range, and you'd have like your Conker's one that went up to around like $70. All your Mario titles, Mario parties, all those are going to be Mario around parties. That 40 to sometimes even like $60 range. But Banjo's one, he's still in the 20, and the Banjo Tooie it's not too much more, because I've been checking out prices, because I'm about to be at 100 games, and I'm thinking of getting trying to find something extra cool, maybe something I'd spend a little bit more money on for that 100th game.
Hell yeah. Now, speaking of games, let's get into games we've been playing recently before we close this show out. I'm going to pass it over to you, James. What have you been playing recently?
Well, with the 64, I've been messing around with that some. I've been playing Body Harvest, which was one of the teams that made Grand Theft Auto eventually. Sandbox style on the 64. You have aliens coming in, just killing people. A lot of people run around screaming, but you can get in vehicles. You can go inside buildings. There's not the most things in the world to do, but sometimes you can find secret items, ammo. It's usually one person you can talk to in there. It's kind of just a little bit corny, a little bit violent, very playable, very fun. And it's not very much to play there. You can kind of see how things morphed into how Grand Theft Auto turned out, with this in a very early form. I've been playing some Shadowgate 64, one of my favorite NES games, and this was an exclusive on the 64. And I think I was the only person at the Babbage's. I pre-ordered it, and there was only one copy there, and it was for me. So
I've done that a couple of times. I did that with actually Castlevania Lords of Shadows when that came out. I was the only one who pre-ordered it at my GameStop, and I got the special edition. Everyone else is too busy playing Halo Reach.
Yeah, mine was just like the only game in the whole store, so it's one I still don't think like a lot of people probably just missed out on that. But it's pretty cool. It's not quite, you had the more point and click style with the original, and this one's a little bit more just like first person, but it's still, the puzzles, the castle, it's still really great, and I'm really having a blast playing through that. And then the newest game I got, which came out the other week, was the Lego Star Wars: The Force Awakens.
Oh yeah.
I'd actually really been looking forward to this game ever since I heard about it. I like all the Lego games, but the Star Wars ones, man, they're just like the best. They made the best Star Wars games, especially with the original trilogy. But I have played those so many times, and I was really looking forward to it. I heard it had, extra story from the movie. Like where did Han Solo get all those crazy aliens he had on his ship? Backstories of people that it didn't touch on in the movie. And I just thought, having all that little extra stuff, because they wanted to pad it out, because usually you have 3 movies in one game. This one just being one, movie. And my brother went through the story already, and I think he was only at about 30-something%. So, I mean, it's got so much. He didn't do any of the bonus missions. I think there's a couple more with they have like a season pass, which I thought was odd. But, it's a lot of extra characters and I think a few extra missions, which, for $10, I think that could be worth it. But, I mean, it gives a lot of love to the older games because you start off with the final battle at Endor. So you finish off Jedi. So, of course, you have all those characters in there, Luke, the Ewoks. It's got a lot of love for the old stuff. So all those characters can cross over and you can play through, so many secrets. Like you can only get through this passageway using the Force. And I've had a blast with it. I really have, nothing but good things to say. And like, if you love Star Wars, if you love The Force Awakens, you love those other damn Lego games, then get it. It's not available on like everything. And it's a little bit cheaper on the older systems. I think I got it on the Wii U, and it was $50. And the only downside a little bit is you have to use the Wii Pad. For some reason, Lego games on the Wii U make you use the pad. But it's not really that uncomfortable, and I'm just, once I actually started playing the game and having so much fun, I don't even notice what controller I'm using. So just really an awesome game.
Nice. I've played a little bit of games, despite being on the road most of the week. I did play and beat Kirby Planet Robobot on the 3DS, which I did a review of it that will be up on Wednesday from recording this. So that'll be up on the 6th of July. It was a really fun game. I did really enjoy it. I don't want to talk about too much because I did do a review of it, but I do recommend it. Also, I played some Shovel Knight. I hadn't played Shovel Knight in a long time, but I went to Best Buy and they actually had Shovel Knight brand new, sealed for like $16 for the PS4. And I was like, you know what? I don't have a physical copy of Shovel Knight. And, the PS4 version has a little bit of differences to it, like you battle Kratos from God of War. So I hadn't picked it up. Also, Mighty Number 9. I played a little bit of that. I remember, we've recorded this so many times. When we first recorded this is when Mighty Number 9 had just came out.
Yeah.
And, I can say I'm glad it's finally out. I'm glad that all the controversy that's with it's in the past now. It is a fun game. It's not the best game I've ever played, but, I can look back and say, okay, I helped fund this game. This game's out. I'm enjoying it. It is what it is. I did a live stream of it. I did a little bit like reviews of it on my Facebook talking about it. It's not a bad game. And of course, if you do buy it, I would recommend buying it for the PS4. The Wii U version, I don't know about physical, but digital Wii U version, which is the one I backed, had a lot of frame rate issues, had a lot of slowdown. PS4 doesn't have that. And also when you buy it on the PS4, you get a PS3 code and a Vita crossplay code as well. So I went ahead and gave that to James. I gave him the PS3 version.
Yeah, it came in very handy. It was cool to get to play it because, I didn't back it. I just heard a lot of things and kind of coming a bit more from the outside and just taking it as a game. I really enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was just really fun.
Yeah.
I liked it when the dude's, when he dies, his little bits split up and the kind of sucking the people's power away. And it has a couple of really annoying bosses, but overall, I really enjoyed it. I think most of the hate is just going to come from the whole process of how things turned out. Because most people that played the game, I haven't really heard any people acting honestly about it that said they hated it.
Yeah, I think a lot, and of course it's died down a lot since recording this, but a lot of the hate when it first came out was just people just hating it because it was like, hey, this is something cool to hate. Let's all hate this together. That's the internet for you. But yeah, it wasn't too bad. Also, I played Tokyo Mirage Sessions. It's the new JRPG for the Wii U. It's got like Fire Emblem and Shin Megami. I gotta make sure I say Megami because I did an unboxing of the special review on my video, and I called it Shin Shigami. Instead of Megami, I said Sha, and everyone gave me shit for it. So, yeah, Shin Megami Tensei crossover, and it's a really interesting JRPG in the sense that it focuses on Japanese idols, like the Japanese pop stars, and what happens is there's these ghostly figures called Mirage. That's what they're called, and they want to destroy humans and suck their performa, which is like your talent inside of you that gives you life or whatever. They want to steal that from you. So these humans that have these performa auras that are very talented and have this special gift also get these other mirages that help them out, and they become mirage masters, and they fight the evil mirage. So it's really it's really out there. I've played about 3 hours of it so far. I haven't played too much of it. I might play some more after the show, but it's been a lot of fun. The special edition was great. I love the soundtrack. If you're a huge fan of the J-pop, you'll really like it. And I think the last game I played was let's see, I believe it was Final Fantasy Explorers. I started getting into that. I haven't played too much of it, but I started playing a little bit of it. And
what is that one on 3DS?
Yeah, it's like $15 now.
Is that the kind of like Monster Hunter styled one?
Yeah, it's like Monster Hunter meets Final Fantasy. I was like, man, this be interesting. And they had the buy two get one free at GameStop this weekend, so I was like, I'll go do that. And also, PS N has that mid-year sale, flash sale going on right now, which that happens all the way till about 10 o'clock tomorrow night, 8 o'clock tomorrow night. That's Pacific time. So be sure to check that out, James, because I'm pretty sure there'll be some PS3 games that are really cheap. I mean, I was seeing games for like $1.99 and like Shanty and stuff like that. They had Shanty for like $1.99. They had her new adventure for like $7.99. I mean, it's pretty good. So I have a lot of games. I just haven't had a whole lot of time, but I got to play a lot more than I was expecting to this weekend.
See, also too, when I got my Star Wars Force Awakens, since on my route at work, I delivered to a GameStop, so I can go there. And I'm there fairly early, and I got the free Lego set that came when you pre-ordered.
Nice.
So that's been cool. And I've been putting together currently the Ecto 1 Lego set. And I haven't done a Lego set in a while. I used to do a whole bunch. And this one has the absolute most smallest pieces I've ever had in a set. But I'm just taking my time with it. I think it's going to be really cool when it gets done. As you can see, with despite what people think with the new Ghostbusters movie, like you've said before, we still get a lot of older things because of it. And, these Lego sets, I think, are part of it. And they're based on the original movie. So it's just very cool.
Awesome. Well, everyone, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to listen to the newest episode of Xsgaming Podcast. And again, thank you very much, guys, for all the patience on episode 88. And I hope you guys have a very happy 4th of July. As always, thanks for listening. And as always, happy gaming.
Have a pleasant 4th of July, everybody.